Hi everyone, welcome back to DIY with Danica, and if this is your first time, then welcome. Before we get started, I want to remind you to push that subscribe button down there so that you can be alerted to any DIYs that I post in the future. School is about to start, and I'm sure that you and all of your friends are doing your back to school shopping. This year, instead of going back to school with some mass-produced school supplies that every single kid in your class is going to have, why don't you use this tutorial and take a few minutes to DIY your school supplies so that they are unique and reflective of your personality. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can DIY your notebooks to make them culturally reflective of who you are. Before I get really deep into this, I also want to say that this tutorial on updating your notebooks for the school year was inspired by two other YouTubers. First one is JENerationDIY, and the second one is Sarah Betts. I believe that's her name, Sarah Betts. So I'm going to put a link to their videos in the description for this so that you guys can get other ideas also. For today's tutorial, we are going to be using the following materials. You will need some printouts of things that you think reflect your culture. For today's tutorial, I'm just going to be using printouts of a continent, of Africa. I am African American, so that's what I identify with. You might decide to go with America. You might decide to go with Mexico. You can go with a country in Asia. There's Mexico. You might decide whatever you want that you feel is reflective of your culture. You will need a printout of that, and it should be the correct size to fit onto your notebook, which brings us to your second material that you will need. You will need some notebooks. All of these notebooks can be purchased at your local 99-cent store. I do believe Target has great deals on these, like 15 cents each or something like that for the single subject notebooks. You will also be needing an X-Acto knife. Now, if you're a kid, make sure you get your parents' help with this. I've had this X-Acto knife more than 10 years, so I can't tell you how much it costs, but you can probably find one at a Home Depot or some other hardware type store like that. You will also be needing some Mod Podge. You will be needing a pair of scissors. You will also be needing your hot glue gun and a glue stick. You will also be needing some decorative papers. So I have some sparkly gold, I have black, and last but not least, as a matter of fact, the most important thing that you will be needing is fabric that represents your culture. So I have some kente cloth here, and I also have another African print that I really liked right here. I picked both of these prints up at Joann's Fabric. The least that you can purchase of a roll of fabric is 1/4 of a yard. So that's what I purchased. And because they were African print, they cost a little bit more, but each one was about $3 and change. I think that's all we need, so let's get started. The first thing you'll need to do is to cut out the image of the continent. I'm working with Africa, or the country, or even a flag. You can have this in a flag shape that you are planning to use. So I have my cutout of Africa. Now I want to attach this to the folder and then trace it and cut that out of the center of the folder. So again, I'm just going to center this where I want it on the folder. Gonna put the tiniest dab of glue just to hold it in place really quick so it doesn't move around. Then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife first I'm going to use a pen to trace the outer edge of the continent. Doesn't matter if the ink of the pen shows through, because you really just need to get that shape of the continent. So you could have done this with a toothpick, as long as you're getting that embossed kind of digging into the cover, and you can get the shape of the continent, then that's all that matters. So now I can take the paper off, and it's okay if it's stuck because we're going to cut that out. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's the outline of the continent. So I'm going to open this up and make sure that I'm cutting on a hard surface that won't be destroyed by having cuts put into it. And then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife. Again, kids, make sure you get parents' help for working with something as sharp as an X-Acto knife. And I'm going to trace the continent one more time with my X-Acto knife. Now that I've cut through the shape of the continent, I can just pop it out. There you go. So now I have the shape of Africa, and I've been able to pop it out. Now I can take a piece of fabric, and if I want, I can do my kente cloth just to get an idea of what it might look like. I'm gonna just slide a piece of cloth behind there. And now I have this kente cloth Africa on mine. Now you might be like, oh, you have all this down there. I can cover that up with my black paper. Before I attach my kente cloth, I want to make sure that this portion, the barcode and the information about the actual notebook, how big it is covered so it doesn't detract from the beauty of the motherland, Africa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this black piece of cardstock, which I got at Joann's for 99 cents. You can also pick these up at Michael's. And I am going to attach it to the cover. Like so. I'm going to come back and trace and cut so that is actually the exact size of my cover. Now I'm going to take this one, I'm going to put it on the inside, and I am going to trace that outline of the continent of Africa again, because I need that to come out of the center also.
Bata Bata is the name of the dance we do down Johannesburg way, and everybody starts to move as soon as Bata Bata starts to play.
This time I'm going to use my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to cut that out. The next thing I want to do is I want to quickly take a Sharpie and go around the inner edge of this cut so that we cannot see the white, because it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look great either. So real quick with a Sharpie, just taking it, dragging it along the edge of the cuts, no big deal. Just so you cannot see any white. So the next thing I need to do is to cut the fabric, the kente cloth fabric, to go on the back side or the inside of the folder. It's important that you pre-iron your cloth, which I already did to save time. Now that I have my kente cloth, I'm going to place it face down. I'm going to take my Mod Podge and my paintbrush, and I'm going to Mod Podge the edges of the fabric, so onto the cardboard. So I'm going to start by simply squeezing some Mod Podge, oops, that's a lot, and painting it all around the edge of my continent of Africa and away from that center hole. And I'm going to take the fabric, make sure it's face down, and lay it over. Oh, looks nice. Okay. Put a little more Mod Podge right around the edge of the fabric so that those little, what do you call those, threads don't pop up. And just to make sure it is really, really, really secure, I like to also put a dab of hot glue, just a little bit in each little corner. Ooh, that was hot. Now I gotta wait for that to dry. Okay, if you're like me and you're impatient, then another thing you can do instead of waiting for the whole thing to dry is to take some type of plastic, and I have another notebook right here with the plastic covers, and I'm going to put that plastic between the kente cloth and the first sheet so that the kente doesn't attach to that first sheet while I work on the other side. So the first thing you'll notice, maybe, from taking a look at using the Mod Podge is that it kind of warped the front cover. That wetness kind of make it kind of wavy, which is why I'm using this other cutout that I made to go over it. So I'm gonna start with the edge of the continent. And it doesn't have to be a lot, it just has to be fast because it will start to dry without your permission. Fast as I can, getting this over this. Fast as I can.
Starts to move as soon as Pata Pata starts to play.
And now that I've got that, I'll go back and do the edges. Our next step is going to be to take our folder, which looks really great, Open it up and cover the inside of it with a piece of white cardstock so that it looks more professional.
Till the morning sun begins to shine.
Now I'm going to come through with my hot glue. Okay, so that is one. I really like it. I think it looks great. The next one that I want to do is going to be with a composition book. And I'm choosing this one because it has a plasticky type of cover. And I got this one at the Dollar Tree. This time I'm going to be using my gold paper. Using that same cutout that I had of Africa, I am going to cut out Africa again. This time I'm cutting it out of the gold. I am not going to put hot glue in the center this time, although I could cut through the back. So I might do that. If you do that, make sure that you don't reverse the image. That, say this is how it looks on the front, then that black part needs to be touching the white on the back so that your Africa is still pointed in the same correct direction.
As soon as Pata Pata starts to play.
Here, Africa looks like it's pointing backwards, but when I cut through, it will be pointing the right way. I really wish that this was sticky paper. It's not. I did look for some sticky adhesive paper when I was at the Dollar Tree. I couldn't find any, but if you were to find some, that would be a great substitute for this because then you could just stick it on whatever you wanted. So now I have my Africa. This time I think that I am simply going to attach this to the outside of the book without doing any cutting and underlaying it through the bottom because it has a plastic cover and there is not any extra words and barcodes and things right there, which is why I really like this. So for this one, I'm using the composition book, the glitter paper, and my hot glue gun. And that was extremely easy. For this one, you want to make sure that you don't put the hot glue too close to the perimeter of your cutout because as you press it down, some glue might press out of that edge and you don't want that. So right now we have two notebooks that I really love. I am going to do a folder next. Number 3 is going to be a folder, and this one is navy blue, and I'm going to be using this fabric. I have already ironed this fabric, so that's going to be the first step for you to do is to iron this fabric. And I am going to be attaching the fabric almost like a strip across the center of the notebook. And that's really easy. I'm not cutting out any shapes on this one. I'm going to pull off the sticker, of course. And I'm going to be using my hot glue. And I'm not going to be gluing it all over. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to begin by measuring how much I need. I'm gonna give myself a little bit of allowance here so that I can fold over on the inside of the folder. And then I'm going to pull some over and do the same thing. So I'm gonna cut right about there. For this one, I'm gonna start with gluing on the spine of the folder so that it is even on both ends no matter what I do. Now, I believe I'm going to start with the bottom edge because I'm thinking if I just did the bottom edge, then you might be able to slide stuff into the top if you wanted to. Let's see how that works. I might have to come back and do the top too, but for now, just the bottom edge. And this time I'm gonna put it directly onto the fabric. So. And now for the other side, putting it on the fabric, not the plastic, because I don't know where the line would be on the plastic. And pulling that over. Now I'm going to fold through the inside. Again, I'm going to put that on the fabric, not on the plastic. Okay. And fold it over. And do the same thing to this side. Glue on the fabric. That was super easy, and I have my folder which now has this African print on it, and because I did not hot glue the top, I can actually slide some things in there if I wanted to. If you do choose to glue the top, I would suggest that you glue the top before you fold it in and glue the inside. But I like it like this so that I can put things inside. I hope you like this tutorial and that you plan to give it a try. If you did, then please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and make sure you share this with your friends. We want to make sure that when we go to school that we're not like everybody else. You got to be unique, you got to be different, you got to stand out, and of course you always want to reflect who you are. Thank you guys for watching. Please put any questions you have in the comments box and I will see you next time. Bye.